by gratuitous grace, overpulled that white Cadillac with the guy in it. And we started having a spiritual conversation because, literally Jesus had sent one of his people to pick me up. And one of the things he took exception to was very interesting because sometimes I use the expression like the universe. Well, the universe said that. Because in a way, for me, it's more a more neuter conception of like it's not a he or a she so much as, that's one of the beautiful textures of the Hebrew language and the Greek. But really when we talk about divine, supreme being, it seems it's kind of not limited by gender. And also just to kind of convey that sense that it is above and beyond the human character. But it's so funny. He says, why do you have a trouble saying the name God? And I said, I guess it's like what you were saying about how people have a negative reaction to it. And if what I want to communicate is the nature of that divinity, and if God, the Word, is getting in the way, well, we need to take a look at that. For me, what I've decided is I'm okay with using the word God. And here's how I use it. I use it the way we use X in an algebra expression. It stands for the unknown or even the unknowable, but it allows us to get a handle on that. So it's like when I say God, it's like not because I have like a personal first name basis with the guy, although I aspire to that relationship, but it's because it's a shorthand way of getting a grip on a concept that may be too big for us.
Right. I want to give you an example of that, and it gave me great pleasure. Yesterday morning or Wednesday morning, I forget, anyhow, my days go by, I was going to the aquatic center to go swim before I went to work, and it was still dusky yet. It wasn't quite really light, and there was a piece of paper that was crumpled, but it was still big enough that at first I thought, is that a cat? What is going scampering around like it was chasing something? And then it flip-flopped everywhere, and then it went tumbling up into the air. And I laughed finally when I realized it's just a piece of paper. I said, well, you sure are having a lot of fun, referring to, I was thinking paper was having a lot of fun. And immediately, and I'm serious, the paper dropped from being about 10 feet up in the air and rolled right over to my foot. And I picked it up, and I crumpled it up so I could throw it in the trash, and then noticed there was another piece of paper crumpled up. And the Holy Spirit said, "I get that one too." And then I realized what was happening, that God was playing with me. Yeah. Here, let's play catch with the paper. And He was just giving me something simple and beautiful to make me happy. There's something like that can make you happy if you were open like a child and connect.
It's when you say that, it's so universal that really speaks to me because one of my favorite concepts ever is Leela. Is in the old Sanskrit word for that divine supreme being's playfulness. There's a playful nature at the center of the kind of the design of the universe. That Leela, I love that they have a word for that, and that open childlike mind. I think that's a lot of Zen and Taoism that they're trying. They're big on that. Like having that open, innocent, childlike mind is really important for your spiritual preparation.
Well, one of my favorite scenes.
Right, it is.
One of my favorite scenes ever in a movie. The movie as a whole, I kind of liked it. It was controversial among Christians, but I did like. Did you ever see American Beauty? It won Best Picture in like 2000 or 99. Yeah. And they have a scene that's exactly what you're talking about.
Plastic bag.
I'm about to. Yeah,
sorry.
Where this guy is this mysterious guy teenage boy that seems kind of creepy, but this girl is attracted to him. This girl from a very straight-laced family, and she's very frustrated because her parents are really living a very hypocritical life and cheating on each other and doing horrible things. And she falls for this boy who everybody says, stay away from him. He's bad news just because he's a loner. And then he takes her in his room, and he shows her that he has all these videos, and she thinks it's going to be creepy porn kind of stuff or something like that. And instead, he's showing how he goes out every day, and he tries to find examples of God's beauty and presence in the world in everyday things. And he shows her in one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in a movie, of the swirling of a plastic bag and how it just keeps moving. And he said it was God playing with him. And
that's right.
Yeah. Oh, it's
one time.
Love that movie.
There was just seeing the clouds. The kids' one of their favorite pastimes. I bet looks like a turtle to me. and this looks like this to me, and so forth and so on. And one day, just looking at this beautiful, awesome sky and the way the clouds were with the sun and and I was thinking, Lord, you enjoy putting this together like an artist would, you know? I mean, we don't see that as there's a spirit of wind and heat and sun that is being used to create this beauty. We don't see it, but if you only with the open mind of a child, we will see it. That there is this being up there that's enjoying doing this for us and for our pleasure.
That that's where you get me, Elizabeth, because that's exactly it. And I love that good old-fashioned word, teleology, was the old-fashioned word for that the proof of God's existence by the design in the universe. Seeing that sacred geometry and those deep patterns in life isn't a very old science and a little old-fashioned maybe, but where got me was you're literally right. What kind of broke me out of my from public school and very secular parts of my family who raised me, I got this very strict, secular, scientific, atheist, very rational upbringing, especially around science. And what happened was I started in the late 90s, we started experimenting with computers and networks and with some of these very old mathematical patterns that, go back before modern science and some very new discoveries. We were seeing wonderful patterns, including a form of evolution, a way that evolutionary itself was this pattern by which beautiful forms would emerge from very simple combinations. But that's what was amazing to me is looking at that science deeply enough. And then here's the story is I finally found one of the most amazing scientists. He dropped out. He worked at the National Nuclear Laboratories. He moved out to this old boxcar in the New Mexico desert and programmed this stuff. And his output would be beautiful art that was generated by these almost lifelike organic equations and programs, basically. We called it artificial life. And he showed me these programs. We were sitting in the jungle in Mexico, and he's showing me these outputs because after breeding them for thousands of generations, organic patterns would begin to emerge of landscapes and neurons and things that look like undersea creatures, all from pure math. And it was so amazing. I realized everything I had been taught about science was probably wrong. Everything I thought I knew was definitely wrong. And at that moment, a monkey pooped on my head. I kid you not, from the top of the tree, splat on my head. And my wife at the time thought it was the funniest thing ever. But at that moment, I realized I was in a deeper dialogue with the universe than I had been taught to expect at public school, and that the writings of the old science, Sir Isaac Newton. Now it wasn't so crazy that Sir Isaac Newton was into biblical prophecy and alchemy as much as inventing the beginnings of science. That those things were not so different after all. That in fact, the early scientists, the mystics, the poets were all onto the same thing, and that is that divine supreme being.
Right. I think it's really interesting. And, you talked about the Bible earlier, and we're going to do a show about this. It says that in the Bible. We're going to point out things that are in the Bible that you would not believe is in the Bible.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting that the temptation that was given to Adam and Eve, who had everything. Now, folks, there had to be more two people created than Adam and Eve, but this Adam and Eve is an example of the creation of mankind, okay? I'm not going to, but Adam and Eve, the temptation that was used with them or given to them, they who have had everything that they could ever want without, even it was there for them, the temptation that was given was that if you eat from that tree of knowledge, you will be like God. Mm-hmm. And in other words, they wanted to have all the knowledge in the world just like God had. And isn't that what we struggle with right now in our world? Oh, we got to find out how this happened and found out how that happened and so forth and so on. That it seems like the more we get two things can happen. One is that we'll get further away from God, or in your case, and in my case too, I cannot help but see what these scientists are teaching us now about nature, and I'm going, well, there it is. There's the proof that there's a God.
Some of the most closeted divines and mystics, that was what was surprising was when I started asking questions about the math behind Darwinism. I gave a presentation at UC Berkeley to the paleontologists, and I loved their old drawings of the bones. I thought they were wonderful artists as well as scientists. And here I was, a young nerd with my computer models and all my computer science friends, and we were showing these models of like, well, here's how the math would work. But and then in some cases we got a very strong feedback. And the more I began to question, like, well, how does evolution work? And go into it, the more I pushed at that, I got this extreme reaction, and then bunched in with like I was some kind of fundamentalist and I'm some kind of creationist. But what that taught me was, wow, maybe these guys that I've been ignoring out of hand, maybe they have a point. And maybe they don't have to be all right either. But suddenly what that did is when I felt that, not persecution, but not logical, not they weren't interested in dialogue or discussion or real open questioning. When it comes to the central dogma, is what they call it, of science and Darwin and the orthodoxy of official Darwinism, it's like there was no questioning. So in a way, it was interesting when I came down hard on just for asking questions. Here I thought I was a good secular scientist making rational, arguments. And when they came down so hard on me and then kind of grouped me with these people that before I would not think I had anything in common with, it opened my mind. Suddenly I was like, well, okay, what is the theological perspective on that? And then meanwhile, how does that inform, what we think of as science? So the thing is that there is great good that comes from these debates, and even if I think it's a very false debate between evolution.
Yes, really. As long
creation.
as it is a debate and not an argument. I'm going to. My Bible is open to Matthew 7, and the Lord is drawing my eyes to this: ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. And I know what He's trying to say to us right now is that just like the scientist, just like people who are searching because they're miserable and unhappy, that all you have to do is ask me and I will give you wisdom. All you have to do is seek and you're going to find the truth that you're looking for. And open up your mind. It says knock and the door will be open, but open up your mind to the possibility that what you've been taught all your life by parents, by churches, or whatever, to the possibility that you'll find the truth right there before your eyes in His Word in the Bible. In the last days, the Spirit, my Holy Spirit, will teach you. It's spoken of in the Bible. I think about, and I hope my mind don't get away from me about asking Nakani. I think about the fact that we're not supposed to argue, because it tells us not to do that, and I agree, because all that does is cause people to, again, point fingers and say, well, who wants to go to that church, or who wants to be a part of church if that's what you're going to do? Right. Again, we go back to this one truth, that God is love. If you live in love, God lives in you. And there is this concern right now in the fact that churches are trying very hard to make sure that we do not put Jesus off into a corner after the great sacrifice He did for us, of loving enough that He was willing to become a man to begin with. Think about it. That's like us becoming a cockroach. But to come human, to leave this deity and become human so that He could teach us and guide us, because He's giving us a human perspective. I know what it's like to be human. This was an awesome, great sacrifice on His part. And I personally believe in the resurrection after life, because of He died for us and rose again, and it's our belief in Him. I personally believe, it's my belief that because of what He taught me, that my sins are forgiven, my humanness. I was talking earlier about sin being kind of harsh sounding, and that it's just human emotions that make us do things and act the way we do at times, but it's hurtful. So I connect sin with hurt. And so my hurtfulness, the things that I do or say that hurts another or myself, that